Hey, paisans, the time has come. On the air since 2009, the independently produced, non-FCC compliant champ of video game talk podcasting. Here comes Tiger Claw Radio. Here's your host, Critical Failure.
What it do, boys? It's time for Tiger Claw Radio. It's going to be an exceptional show this week. We've got a little bit more, I don't want to say concerning, but weird news about GTA 6. We're going to do the mystery track. We're going to do the chiptunes. We're going to do the whole bit. Kicking things off over at battleofthebits.org, their Bandcamp account. Now, we often talk about how when they release an album, it stays free only until the next album comes out, and then it gets a price tag. Well, a couple weeks ago, we played stuff from Summer Chip 13. Remember that? Because that had been released for free. And I said it's not going to be for free long, and it certainly wasn't. We have Retro Nostalgia, which is a weird milquetoast name for an album, but there is another album out on battleofthebits.org. So we'll take a look at that, and we're going to do some fun stuff. This track is called Exordium. It's from Skydev. It is the 11th track off of the Retro Nostalgia album over on battleofthebits.org. Stick around. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. More when we come back.
And so it begins.
Alright, boys and girls, the mystery track this week is one I guarantee you not a single person who's listening to this is going to get right away. And I also guarantee you that every single person listening to this has encountered this game at least once. Take a listen. Do you know what it is yet? We're going to let it play a little bit longer. It's a way better song than it is a game. I usually don't like to drop hints until later in the show. Such a good track, man. Well, we're going to put that one aside. That is the mystery track. Do you know what it is already? I remember hearing that. You know what? we're gonna dive into stories about that game later on, but I'm excited. I'm excited about this one. All right, let's see what else we got. Okay, so this is something that I put in the Discord this past week, and it's about Grand Theft Auto 6. Now, GTA 6, I'm trying not to pay attention too closely because I know there's no way that they can, reproduce another GTA 5. But here we go. There's going to be a radio station. GTA 6 will reportedly feature a DJ Khaled radio station that plays only his music.
DJ Khaled!
Now,
We the best!
Another one. Another one.
I don't even really know.
Another one.
He's
Another
just
one.
such a goofy human being. I mean, okay, so if you look this guy up, he's a record producer, right? He's a producer. So if you were to ask me what's a DJ Khaled song, I could not answer even a single one because he's a producer. What do we all actually know this guy from?
Another one.
That's right, him being a weirdo on the internet. And so they're going to give him his own radio station. And okay, I guess that's cool. GTA 5 had a punk rock station, and the DJ was none other than Keith Morris. Do you know who Keith Morris is? I know not everybody who listens to this is a huge punk guy. Keith Morris was the original singer for a band called Black Flag. That's a band that went through like 3 or 4 different singers until they finally settled on Henry Rollins. After he was in Black Flag, he left Black Flag and then started a band called the Circle Jerks, and that's a personal favorite of mine. They've got a number of records that are worth it, even for the uninitiated when it comes to like hardcore punk. And then in his late years, even in his, how old is he now? His 60s, he's in a band called Off, and he still has the sound that he had in 1987, or whenever Circle Jerks were putting their albums out. This is a talented guy, somebody I really enjoy hearing from. And if you put on the punk station, and I can't remember what the name of the station is, he tells stories and stuff, and it's really him, and he's really doing his thing. And I always thought for a video game that was out of this world that they were able to do that, especially a game like GTA 5. I felt like it was super, super cool. And it set a bar that I think is really high for GTA 6, at least for me, because that's, those are the outliers. That's not, the people listening to 1980s hardcore punk are not, are not the same like 16, 17-year-olds who would play GTA 5, online all day, or at least that was the picture I got. So I always really appreciated that. So we'll see. So having said that,
DJ Khaled!
You can see
it's a little, it can be a little concerning.
Another one.
But
Another one.
Whatever
Another
they,
one.
at this point,
Another one.
whatever they have to do to get the game out the door, I'm on board with. I think the greatest radio station in the history of GTA or any of those games is the independent station in GTA 4 on PC, because you could stock a folder with MP3s and they would play them at random. And I think that made for a really cool station. That's blasphemy, because I know that series like has done a lot of really creative things with the radio over the years, but that was always kind of my favorite. So if they can manage to bring that back, we'll be in a good place. So let's talk a little bit more locally now and do that thing that podcasts always do, where it's, hey man, what you been playing lately? This has been a problem for TCR since time immemorial, since we first started in 2009. It's for when I start to talk about what I've actually been playing lately, it's usually something that's so far outside of the lexicon of the average gamer that it becomes very like, as I say the words, I know, all right, nobody's going to be interested in this. But that said, as you may be aware, I spent a little time over the past couple of months collecting several big box PC games. It's an era of games that was always close to my heart, and it's one of the few types of games that is, difficult to play. There's things that are still rare in that area. And unlike, say, like, I don't know, PC Engine games can also be rare, but in order to play a PC Engine game, you can still do it by throwing enough money at the problem, right? However much it is for those super rare PC Engine shooters, the ones that cost thousands. I think those might be considered the most rare, the most difficult. I'm like one shy of that. Because you can get CD-ROMs for just a couple of dollars, but that Windows 95 and Windows 98 era of gaming, you either have to get a Windows 95/Windows 98 PC and run it off of legit hardware, or you got to take some time and you got to figure out exactly how virtual boxes work. And that's been an issue for me. So what have I actually been playing? Well, I've got two. Hang on a second. Let me get them here. I've got two very large boxes, and they are Definitive Wargame Collection 2, which I think we talked about here in the air a little while back, and 20 Wargame Classics. So historical based war games, which are a very small subset of video games, albeit a very old subset of video games. And I think, I don't remember if I talked about this on air, but I really wanted to play Panzer General, the game Panzer General, right? Do you remember how in 2016 when I built a computer, I named it the Panzer because it was so loud? That was after the game Panzer General, which is a favorite of mine. So I bought the big box version of Panzer General, and I bought both of these collections of war games. Both contain Panzer General separately, and neither one of them I've been able to actually make work. So, what have I actually been playing? I settled into a game called War Game Construction Set 2. Tanks! Ugh. And the best part is, that game, hang on, that game is on both of these boxes, and it's also available on Steam. So, like a complete jerk, I ended up playing the Steam version. War Game Construction Set 2. So there was a trilogy of games for MS-DOS called the War Game Construction Set. Now, there's a piece of context that you really have to bear in mind that won't immediately be apparent if you're just looking at a download list or something. There were several games for the PC that were something construction set, something construction kit that were wildly popular. Two great examples are Bill Budge's Pinball Construction Set, which was hugely popular. That was a game where you could make pinball tables and export independently executable files, you know. If in the 90s, if you bought CD-ROMs that were like, hey, 1,000 games, and they were full of shareware, chances are they had a couple of pinball construction set tables on them being marketed as regular games. So that was one huge one. Another one was Stuart Smith's Adventure Construction Set, also hugely popular from the early Electronic Arts days, when Electronic Arts used to sell their games in record albums because they wanted their developers to be treated like rock stars. So Adventure Construction Set, War Game Construction Set was a historical war game kind of thing that was based in that vein. It was essentially a hex-based, hex and counter-based war game that just had a mission editor. And the first one was very primitive, and the second one sort of struck a balance between games that are really old but still playable. So I got into that game over the past couple of days. I launched it almost on a whim and was like, okay, this is really fun. So that is War Game Construction Set 2, Tanks. And let me run down to the Steam storefront and see what they're charging for it. War Game Construction Set 2. They have all three games. Number 1, number 2, which is called Tanks, and War Game Construction Set 3, Age of Rifles, which I haven't actually tried yet. And the regular price is $5.99, and they also have it on GOG. But I did not pay $5.99. I don't remember exactly what it was, but at some point it went on sale, and it did not cost $5.99. So there you go. That's what I've actually been spending my time doing, is playing this war game construction set. Alongside that, it's been SimCity 2000. The classic, if you've been paying attention to the Discord, Sean Darabka, the gaming beast, came up with this concept of a high score battle using SimCity 2000. And it's going to be population based, and we're play on easy mode, where you start with the most money, play with the unedited map that gets generated, and start the game in 1900, and it ends in 2025, and whoever has the most population at the time wins the challenge. So I've started playing the game, trying to relearn it, and I haven't had a game run all the way to 2025, because to be honest, that's a long game. I mean, you can fast forward time very quickly, but that's a long game. So I have not completed the entire challenge and come up with a benchmark score yet. However, Sean has, and I believe his score was in the 30,000s, and I'm going to jump over to the Discord right now and see if I can get you a number so we can see exactly how our boy Sean did. Bear with me. Oh my goodness. As soon as I open Discord, it just starts bing bong, bing bong. Oh my goodness, we want your attention. We want you to drop whatever you're doing and come look at us. Look at all the wonderful sounds we can make. All right, we're going to Tiger Claw Media. We are going to high scores. Here we go. I have the screenshot posted. I guess he posted it here, and I reposted it elsewhere. His population was 38,340 for Darabkaville, and he has the SC2 file up on the Discord for you to mess with and check out, which is great. I downloaded that save file, and I was able to plug it into an external program, which loaded it up in a nice 3D sort of explorable file that I was able to check out. Very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. So if you are familiar with SimCity 2000 at all, this is a really great idea for a challenge, because the save files are super cool. We can compile all the save files, into a pack and release it on the downloads page of Tiger Claw Media, and that'd be great times. If you got yourself a copy of Simcopter, you can fly helicopters through Darabkaville and shoot things down, or whatever it is you do in Simcopter. I don't think I ever played that one. So there you go. That's been my last week in gaming. Well, boys, let's give it another listen. Let's go back to that mystery track for the week here on TCR. All right, so for some context, it's an NES game. The first level of this game is painfully easy. This track comes from the second level, which I thought was incredibly clever, and then the third level on is broken and ridiculously hard, but not in a fun way. In that sort of way NES games were hard when they weren't finished, It's not a bad little game. It's just I don't know if it was incomplete, or if it got changed when it came to the States, but I don't think that's the case, because I've never heard anybody talk about how awesome the Japanese version is. What do you think? We have to keep this week's episode short because of hosting issues. But what do you think? Huh? We'll give it a few more seconds. There you go. There's the loop. Well, if you don't know what it is, here's another hint. Let's do the title screen music. letting this whole thing play out, by the way. Well, the name of that game is Time Lord on the NES, and it is a game that is often laughed at, and for good reason. However, I have a special affection for that game. Let's go back to when I was a teenager. I love to talk about this era in gaming, but most people don't seem to remember around that time. So I was 16 years old. So what year would this have been? No, not 16. It'd have been younger than that. But anyway, probably about, 13 or so, which I guess would have been 90s. I just paused the recording and did the math. It would have been 1997. Nintendo games were not big at that time. NES games, you know how they're big money now to go on eBay and get an NES game. Good luck getting one for less than $10, even a trashy one. That was not the case in 1997. In 97, that's when they were like, $2 a piece. We had three pawn shops all within the same city block in my town, and they all had NES games, and we'd go down there and buy them, right? Last week, we talked about how Hemrock and I both got into retro games for the same reason, because they were cheap. Well, at that time, and it fits too, because if you look at what games came out in 1997, Tomb Raider, Resident Evil, Quake. 1997 was a huge year for video games. Anyway, around that time, my good buddy Engie had left the NES behind in his life, and he was moving on to other things. He was interested in the PlayStation. He was interested in the Sega Saturn. I remember around that time he had a functioning Sega CD, which I think may be the only time in my life I've seen a real one, in person. He had a Sega CD, and he used to play a game called Popful Mail, and the NES had been all but left behind. He did not have a functioning NES, but he did have a stack of games. So he and I were already like lifelong buds at this point. And he was like, you know what, man? He boxed up all the games, with no idea that they were going to be valuable, gave them to me and said, have at it. So I brought them home, and you have to understand what was in this box, okay? Time Lord was one of the games, yes, and that's the reason why I'm partial to Time Lord. But this box contained Metroid, which was the first time I ever played Metroid. It contained Metal Storm, okay? Metal Storm, which again, no idea it was going to be a big money game. Now, to be fair, 25 years later, I gave Metal Storm back, because we knew it was big money, and he gave it to me. But that box, let's see, it also had Rampage. Do you guys remember Rampage? With the Godzillas and it's destroying the buildings and stuff. Bringing that box home and opening it up and exploring all those games was a huge moment for me in video games. And Time Lord was a part of that memory. And I think it was because I got Time Lord along with a bunch of other pivotal games. It didn't bother me quite so much when I hit that wall after the second level and you get to the third level and it just gets really ridiculous. It didn't bother me as much because I had other stuff to go to move on to. But if you've got yourself an Ambernick, if you got yourself a Pow Kitty, if you got whatever it is, if you got yourself Retro Arch, download Time Lord. Just give it a shot. Just check it out. It's not a bad little game, not a bad little side scroller. All right, how we doing? I'm checking the mic here. So this episode is going to be a day late, which I hate doing, but this time around it was necessary. And I was just getting ready to wrap the show, and while I was in bed last night, some stuff came in from Hemrock over on the Discord. He left something in the fail bag. So let's take a look. Okay, now provided without context is this link. Hang on a second. Vote for the greatest FF game of all time, according to Game FAQs. And then he has an image that shows his picks. They're as follows. Number 1, Final Fantasy V. Number 2, Final Fantasy VI. Number 3 is Tactics. Tactics. Number 4 is 7. Number 6 is Final Fantasy 12. Props for having 12 on that list because I like that game, and that game caught a bunch of flack. Number 7 is Final Fantasy 8. Number 8 is Final Fantasy 1. Number 9 is Final Fantasy 4, and number 10 is Final Fantasy 2. Reading that list off may have been the most ADHD moment we've ever had on TCR, but I did so enjoy it. And when I click the link, let's go here. It's not one, so it's GameFAQs.com, and it's a poll. So I was assuming when I first saw that it would be their daily poll, right? Whatever the day was. They've done this for decades now. You go to GameFAQs.com, and on the right-hand side of the thing is poll of the day. Just for fun, let's see what they have. For today, the poll of the day is: do you think physical gaming media, discs, cartridges, cards, will eventually be completely obsolete? And we have 5 choices, and they're all pretty wordy, so stick with me. Number 1, yes, I bet the generation of consoles won't. I bet the next generation of consoles won't even use them. Number 2, probably, but it'll be a generation after the next before it happens. Number 3, maybe, but enough people want them to keep them around for now. Number 4, probably not. There will always be people who can't or won't download games. Number 5, never. Download-only games are just a big fad. Discs and carts will never die. And I'm just seeing this for the first time as I'm reading it off now, so without putting much thought into it, I think it's going to be a real thing where physical media kind of goes away, but it's going to be like generation after next, in my opinion. If you think back, systems have already been released. They've already sort of floated the idea of no physical media. You know, I think PSP Go is the best example, and at the time it was kind of rejected. But the landscape's changed a lot. So I don't know. No physical media means no used games, and people are going to hate that. Even people who, embrace digital distribution. Personally, I embrace digital distribution because it means I have less things in my very limited space, right? But if I'm going to play a console game, which admittedly I don't as much, there's got to be used stuff. It's a big part of the console experience for me. So they could work it out. I think it's coming, but I think it's a couple generations away. So probably it'll be the generation. That's my answer. Let's see what the results are. Most people are saying maybe, but enough people want to keep them around for now. And the polls have a nice bell curve to it. Very few people think that the next generation won't use them. Very few people think they'll never die. So most people are sensibly in the middle. That's the Game FAQs poll of the day. Every single day since I first saw this site in probably 1998 or whenever it was. And that's what I thought this was. But the actual poll is from the forums, which is, just as weird. Not I would say weird, but just as nostalgic, because there was a time when the GameFAQs.com forums was the place to be, man. I used to just hang out there and just see what ridiculous things people said. I don't do that anymore. I think kind of takes me back a little bit. So let's see. I'm kicking off a mega FF nostalgia throwback moment. This direct sequel thread to my poll thread, which inspired this thread, etc., etc. Okay, and if reading through the responses, everyone is doing exactly what Hemrock did. Top 10 Final Fantasy games in order. And you know what? I'd have to spend some time and put together a list. But my favorite Final Fantasy games, just without thinking too closely, 9 is my favorite. 9 is my favorite, probably followed by 12 is also really good. 7 would be on there too. 7 was a pivotal game. And I really liked, I can't remember the number now. Hemrock, don't hate me, but it was Hemrock, while you were doing your list, remember you were doing your top 8 of the first 8? The one with Kefka? And I can't remember which number it is. I'm so sorry. And I think it was your number 1 game, and you turned me on to it. So when I had COVID it was either COVID or like foot and mouth. I had a really bad sickness and I was isolated, and I put probably, 12 hours into that game in a short period of time. That game was really, really good, and although I didn't play it till the end, I would put that up there as well. But that's 4 games in a series that's had way more than 10. I don't know. Comes to Final Fantasy, I'm not super equipped to argue which ones are the best of the best of the best. Because you know what else would be on my best Final Fantasy games? Final Fantasy Legends 3. Oh man, for the Game Boy. What an awesome game. Especially if you play it on Steam, where you can turn the speed up double time, but it still preserves the pitch of the sound. That is an excellent, excellent game, and a great way to experience it as well. So big thanks to Hemrock for chiming in with that little link and giving us that quick trip down Game FAQ's memory lane. I'm going to pop over to YouTube as well, because I think Mecha Menace may have chimed in. But before I do, I just want to take a quick mention to the Patreon sponsors. It's a Patreon-sponsored program. These guys give of their resources. I don't offer the Patreon sponsors much. I try not to do a bunch of like Patreon-exclusive audio, right? Because I feel like that cuts out the people who just hang out for their time. But what I do give them is a hall of distinguished gentlemen. They are Darabka, they are EmeraldRangers.com, and they are TechmoBalls. Thank you guys so much. I try not to ask for new Patreon sponsors, but I'm not above asking people to come chill in the Discord. So come chill in the Discord if you haven't. So to you gentlemen, I hope you guys are enjoying the party. And let's pop over and see if there's anything in YouTube. Well, looks like that's the end of the fail bag. Nothing from Mecha Menace this week. Looks like he sat in on last week's YouTube episode and did like 4 or 5 comments, and I seem to remember one of them coming in after I finished recording. So if I missed one of your comments, Mecha, my sincere apologies. That's our episode for this week, boys and girls. And I know it's a little bit of a short one, but we got we sort of went over budget with our hosting. So sorry about that, Sendu. Whatever it is you got ahead of you this week, man, I just want you to know, for realsies, I'm rooting for you. Not even a gimmick. I hope it goes well. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next week.